The Church at Home is a program highlighting topics that affect the church in the modern world, here in the Diocese of Youngstown and beyond. Your program host is Father James Korda.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Church at Home. I'm Father Jim Korda. Today we're going to talk about the subject of Catholic Charities. And joining me in today's show is the Director of Catholic Charities for Youngstown Diocese, Brian Corbin. And Brian, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Father Korda. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
I think what we want to do is kind of get a feel for what exactly is Catholic Charities. We know that it's probably the largest not-for-profit agency in the country. I would think so. And it does a lot of things for a lot of people. So in a nutshell, tell us about Catholic Charities.
Sure. Well, Catholic Charities is kind of rooted in the history of the church. It is a ministry of the church, obviously. And there was a story in the Acts of the Apostles where the early church, the Hebrew women were complaining that the Greek women were getting more food. And out of that little confrontation, the early Acts, came the diaconate, or the deacons were formed. And that was the whole point of trying to serve people. So our history goes way back to the apostolic times as a ministry of the church. So today, flash forward 2,000 years, Catholic Charities continues that ministry of the bishop to be his official arm in the community, helping those in need, those who are vulnerable, those who are lost, those who need help, those who need food, those who need shelter. Catholic Charities' main goal is to continuing to organize what's called the corporal works of mercy. I think many people are familiar with that, to feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, to visit the prisoner, visit the sick, welcome the stranger, and bury the dead. And that's basically what Catholic Charities organizes around, those many facets. So here in the Diocese of Youngstown, there are 6 counties, and we have 4 regional agencies serving all 6 counties. And those social service agencies are a full agency where they do counseling at a minimal level. We work with a lot of counselors out there that work with us. But most of the time we spend our time helping people with utilities, with food vouchers, helping people get prescription drugs. We have a program in Ashtabula County which helps with guardianship. Guardianship is a program where an adult who does not have a family member or has been abandoned by their family member can't make decisions on their own. They may be really ill or maybe have some mental issues that don't allow them to be fully aware of what they're supposed to do. The court appoints these people to us, and we help them deal with their daily life. That's a very important ministry, especially for vulnerable seniors. We have housing counseling. Right now, Father Jim, I'm sure you've probably heard of many people who are probably facing foreclosure and loss of their homes. We have thousands of people in this region that are facing that. And we were very lucky to get part of the stimulus money a couple years ago, that as part of a federal grant and a contract, as well as private money through Catholic Charities and HUD, to work with people so that they don't lose their house. Or if they have lost their house, we help them rebuild their credit to get back to one. So that's a very important ministry right now, as you can well imagine. In Columbiana County, we have a program for domestic violence. Every county in the state of Ohio has an official domestic violence shelter, and we operate and sponsor the one in Columbiana County. Columbiana County is kind of in the heart of Appalachia. A lot of people don't know about our domestic violence work there, but it's a very important ministry that we're very proud of. Also in Columbiana County, we have Meals on Wheels for seniors, and we have a senior center in East Liverpool where hundreds of seniors come every day for mostly socialization, but that's okay. Sometimes they're alienated and alone and isolated, and we've helped prepare a meal for them, give them some community time together, things to work with, activities to do, and it builds a little bit of community, keeps people from being isolated, especially in a rural community.
The one thing that I wanted to mention, and you can talk briefly about, is Catholic Charities assists not just Catholics, but it's people in need, people that are looking for some assistance. So that whole base of assistance is broader than just helping people in the church.
Sure, very good point. A couple of things. One, in Scripture, there's this really powerful story in the Gospel of Luke called the Good Samaritan, where the question was to Jesus, who's my neighbor? And then Jesus goes into this incredible parable about the Samaritan who stops and helps a wounded man when others have walked by. And the point being, that was the neighbor looking for someone in need. That's what Catholic Charities is called to do. Pope Benedict XVI was very clear in his first encyclical, Deus Caritas Est, God is Love, that the Good Samaritan story is the story of Catholic Charities. We have to see all the Christian church, obviously, but Catholic Charities is supposed to go out and find a neighbor. So to your point, there was a saying once, there's a story that's spreading in the country that Cardinal Hickey once in Washington, D.C., basically someone said, why don't you just serve Catholics? Isn't that what Catholic Charities is supposed to do? You're just supposed to serve Catholics. And the Cardinal looked at the group and said, we serve because we're Catholic, not because they're Catholic. So I thought that put it in perspective of the Good Samaritan story. So here in the Diocese of Youngstown, basically 70% of those who come to our door are other than Catholic. And we welcome them very well, very hospitably, and try to make them to know that the love of God is there. Interestingly, back when Catholic Charities here in the diocese started and in the United States, we were an immigration agency. Many of the people that came through our doors in 1910, let's say, were Irish and Italians and Slovaks and Hungarians, most of them Catholic. And that changed over time as that group of people became more and more assimilated to U.S. culture. Today what we're seeing is a new wave of people who are Catholic from the Hispanic community that are coming from Latin America and Central America. So the 30% of those that we serve that are strongly Catholic coming from new immigrants. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix. But thank you for that question. It's very important for people to understand that we serve people because we're Catholic, not because they're Catholic.
The other thing that's interesting is that the different agencies that are in the diocese don't all do the same thing. Many of them do the same thing because the need is similar, but yet there's some, as you had mentioned in Columbiana, that gear towards particular interests or problems. Are there any other particular issues that are handled just in one agency alone because it's peculiar to that region?
Sure. One thing that we've done in Portage County is we were able to acquire a four-story building which has 24 units of housing in downtown Ravenna. So what we're doing there is particularly having a what's called low-income market rate housing for people who are just struggling to make ends meet. There's no program, there are no strings attached. It's just a very safe place to live that allows people who are low income to pay less than 30% of their income to actually live there. So that's one program. In the city of Youngstown, similarly, though different, we have over 150 units of housing in the city that literally we fund people who make less than 42% of the median income, which means it's very low income people. And we promise for 20 years through a contract with the HUD and through special grants to house people who are very low income. So again, depending on the need of the community. In Stark County, because of needs, we have a program for adult daycare. Many people have older family members who they need help with, and this gives them a respite from care. So we have a location in Louisville where we actually help people who have memory loss or some form of dementia, where we can take care of them for a whole day, a whole week, or 1 hour if someone just wants to take a respite time.
I think another group of people that oftentimes are the most vulnerable are women with children. And I'm sure that there's lots of programs that are geared towards them in particular. Anything that you'd like to lift up? Sure.
Interesting enough, through Scripture and through listening to Jesus' stories and parables, the prophets always lifted up, where are the widows, where are the orphans, and where are the strangers? So right to your point, a lot of our programming, I believe like 90% of the people that come through our door are women, and many with children. So a couple programs that we have is the Domestic Violence Shelter in Columbiana County, but all of our agencies in all 6 counties also participate in what we call First Step for Change. What that is a commitment from Catholic Charities that if a woman or a couple who are pregnant up to a child age 3, that we will work with them for 3 to 4 years to help them stabilize their lives, get into the proper programs, help them find their education, and we'll work with them for 4 years at least to help that young family, especially women and children, break through poverty. So that's very important also. Another program that we're very grateful for parishes. Again, parishes help raise this money for us. We thank them so much, all those individual donors and parish donors. And many participate in filling these little baby bottles with coins or dollars. That helps specifically that program. Then during the winter months, we have found that many women and children who are living in apartment houses are having a hard time paying utility because of the cold. So every year we ask parishes to help us right during the Christmas season, between Christmas Day and the Feast of the Baptism of the Lord, for helping people who are in need of utility help. So that's been a great help to many women and children.
We have just a few minutes left. I'd like you to talk also briefly about the collaborative effort that happens with other groups that are outside of the boundaries of Catholic Charities that obviously Catholic Charities works with.
Surely.
Because it's just not an entity unto itself,
Exactly.
but it's kind of a branching out and a collaboration effort to meet human need, period.
Absolutely. On that level, we certainly work with government agencies and they refer to us all the time, the United Way agencies. We have a network of people we work with. We certainly work very closely with the Humility Mary Health Partners and Mercy Medical Center in Canton. So St. E's, St. Joseph's, Mercy Medical. And then we work with many groups that we fund through the Catholic Campaign for Human Development or work with us, like the Immigrant Worker Project, the Religious Women's Coalition for Anti-Trafficking. We work with the Catholic Network for Migrant Farmers. So many groups that we work with that aren't necessarily related to Catholic Charities, but we want to work with them and continue to work with them to the best we can. As you know, the diocese has a relationship to the Lutheran Synod, so we work very closely with Lutheran Social Services, and we work very closely with the Jewish Federation as well.
In closing, if there's people out there that want to know what they can do, how they can help, what are some of the avenues for them?
Sure. First of all, always we need prayers. We have so many people that are vulnerable and in need. Your prayers would be really important. Second, come to our website at www.ccdoy.org. Find out what we're doing. If you're called to donate some money, that would be fantastic to any one of these ministries. Or find a way to volunteer. Just go to our website and we'll connect with you and we can offer ways. And finally, if you really are part of the social media world, join us on Facebook. We have a page on Facebook, Catholic Charities Diocese of Youngstown, and even Twitter at CCDOY. So there's many ways you can join us, and we'd love to have people connect with us to learn more about our work and in partnership with them, and especially thanking them for all their stewardship of time, talent, and treasure.
Well, Brian, we thank you for being with us and for giving us a wealth of information on Catholic Charities. God bless you and your work as well.
Thank you, Father Korda. I appreciate the time.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Johnsons enjoy Friday dinners out. Nothing fancy, just time together to reconnect as family. They make sure others eat as well. By giving to Catholic Charities of Youngstown, the Johnsons join other angels who care for those in need, regardless of religion or race. Show your wings with a gift to Catholic Charities, changing lives one family at a time, providing housing, emergency financial assistance, senior services, and more. Give now at ccdoy.org.
Their numbers are growing. More than a year ago, more than a decade ago. More people now living in this state than nearly any state in the Union. 1 out of every 10 families in America. 1 out of every 6 children in America. 33 million Americans teetering on the brink of hunger, sickness, hardship. 33 million Americans descending into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
Welcome back to Church at Home. I'm Father Jim Korda. We've been talking on the subject of Catholic Charities. Now we're going to focus on the issue of human trafficking. And joining me now in today's discussion is Sister Karen Bernhardt, a Humility of Mary sister who works very closely in that whole issue of human trafficking, especially in Stark County. And Sister Karen, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
We want to get right into our subject of human trafficking. We know that it's a very large, very big issue and problem here in the United States and especially locally here in Ohio. Share with us some of those statistics as to why it's such a big problem.
Well, it's a human rights issue, and back in 2000, the Trafficking Victims Act was passed by Congress. So the Department of State is very involved every year publishing a report, and now we're also looking internationally as well. The good thing is that there are a lot of people that have really become aware, but there's an awful lot to do yet. Human trafficking internationally, they have estimated about 800,000 people are trafficked, but that's really a very small number because many are not identified. And then here in the United States, it's about 20,000 that have been identified, but many have not because of either status or they don't want to be involved with prosecution.
When we talk about human trafficking, could you define what exactly that means and what are the areas that entails?
Human trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision or obtaining of a person for a commercial sex act or labor or services. And this is the important part. It's through force, fraud, or coercion.
So obviously it's against their will.
Correct, correct. They might think they're getting into a situation that they've agreed to, but when they get to the site where they're going to be involved, it's a different situation.
The one interesting thing that you had mentioned, that the statistic is probably lower than what the actuality is. Why would that be? Are there repercussions within their families or back at home? What would keep that number low that we actually hear about?
Really often the individual's family has been threatened if they go to any kind of police or a law enforcement person. And so they're they just don't want to go there. And also there are many citizens here in the U.S. that are victims of human trafficking, but there are also a lot of that are non-citizens. And because of that, they're frightened to go to a law enforcement person to report it.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about human trafficking, what are some of the areas or some of the places that someone in this situation would be working or would be used as a slave, perhaps?
Hotels is one of the examples. Restaurants, it could be a nail salon, a hair salon, massage parlor. There's nannies that have been identified, housekeeping, and then for the immigrant population, I've seen in the farm worker area, there's been an awful lot that have been trafficked from other countries here. And then there's just an awful lot of different issues that people come up for, thinking they're coming maybe to study, and then they're put into a job that they didn't know they were agreeing to.
Mm. Are there any particular countries that have a great or greater influx of people that are trafficked?
Yes, there's in the Asian countries, especially Thailand, is very prominent. And then Africa has a number of different countries there that have had a number of people trafficked. And then Central America and some of the other smaller countries, yeah.
Is there any particular part or area in our state, in the state of Ohio, where that focus is more dangerous and where people coming in to be used is more prevalent?
Well, I think the most identified area is the Toledo area, because they have found with the highway system, and Ohio has a great highway system, east and west, north and south. So they're on the way north, they could be coming down from the border of Canada, and then from the west, often they're brought from Chicago, passing through to New York, and then going down south through our wonderful interstate system. So because of that, there have been several advocates in Toledo. Celia Williamson is one who has been very involved and active in getting the police, the law enforcement, FBI. They've been able to form a task force in that area, and they've been able to identify many trafficking victims.
What specifically does the Commission in Stark County do for the whole problem of human trafficking? What are some of the things that you are currently working on?
Well, we're part of the Collaborative Initiative to End Human Trafficking, which is a project that the Sisters of the Humility Mary started back in 2005. But not just us, because we've always collaborated with many other community sisters, with many agencies who are social service agencies, domestic violence, law enforcement, the legal, like legal aid, all those entities. And so we've been able to, in Stark County, the whole emphasis of our initiative is education and advocacy. And then if someone perhaps is identified, we're connecting them to services, but we don't do the services as of now, although we are looking in the future of perhaps doing something in Stark County for housing.
When you would have someone in this whole area of human trafficking, would they actually come to you or come to your commission or your organization, or do you go out looking for them? How does the process work?
Well, we're really here to educate the general public, because they are really the people that could, identify someone. If, like in a neighborhood, if they see someone who's hardly ever allowed outside and they wonder what's going on, that's kind of a red flag. And they can be the person, and there's a national hotline for trafficking victims, or for someone who wants to report that issue, and that can be found on the website. I can give that to you if you'd like that. But
yes, please.
Okay, let me look it up here. It's 1-888-3737-888.
And that would be if someone is aware of some situation that they could actually call this number. Can they do that anonymously? Or
yes, and it could be a human trafficking victim. The Polaris Project, which is a national organization that works with the Health and Human Services, do a lot of things, providing resources like posters, cards that we can give to persons that we might think that might be a victim of human trafficking. We can leave them. Sometimes we leave them in rest areas, on highways, in bathrooms, and just a way that they have a way to know who they could contact.
You had mentioned that your primary purpose is to educate. Do you think, and I believe so, a lot of people that just are totally unaware of the issue and the problem outside of how Hollywood has kind of depicted it?
Yes, I think in the last couple of years there's been more media attention, but I think as we do presentations, and that's one of the things that our committee does and all the different committees throughout the northern part of the state in this collaborative, we've been able to talk to people about how they can be our eyes and ears and help us with that. And then also who they could connect with in their area, as far as agencies and things.
When we talk about someone that would come who's in this situation looking for help, do you think part of the fear for them is going back to their country and the reprisals there, or is it just a number of different things that might be an issue or concern? What if they're here illegally? Is that another issue that a commission would look at to assist them with, for example, gaining citizenship if it's their desire?
Yes, those who are immigrants and want to come forward and be a part of the prosecution, they can receive a special visa called a U visa, and immigration lawyers can help them, and we have that capability in our diocese for that. But also, they often don't want to go back to their home country because of some reprisals, and also I guess they would be kind of shunned by their community. So some do, and they can easily transition, but others no. So they could possibly, but the problem is collaborating with the prosecution, and that's kind of scary for an immigrant, to say the least. And then the prosecutor has to agree to sign off on that as well, that they're very much a part of the prosecution of this person. And often it's now become part of the mafia and different crime syndicates, so there is a lot of reprisal.
We're kind of coming down to the end of our time together. The one thing I wanted to mention or ask you to talk briefly about is, does this affect men, women, and children, or are there more predominance in women or children, or does it affect all of them?
Well, I probably say women, children, and then men. That's kind of how it goes, but all are affected. And I think we often don't think about our own U.S. citizens as being a part of that. And as far as with the youth, the runaways, it is an unbelievable problem with trafficking. And so we have been able to work in our Stark County area with some of the agencies that work with runaways. And we're talking about working with the Salvation Army, because they're a part of our committee, of doing some outreach on the street. There's a program that Salvation Army has done in Columbus that we're looking at. And there is this PAL mission that does provide housing for runaway persons and victims on the street. And so we're in a conversation about possibly doing something like that.
If someone is with us now that might want more information on what they can do, how can they get involved, do you have opportunities for people like that?
Yes, we meet monthly in Stark County, and we have 10 different sites throughout the northern part of the state. And here in the Youngstown Diocese, there's one in Youngstown and then the Stark County one. So I would suggest that maybe they get on the website, Collaborative Initiative to End Human Trafficking, and they will tell them my information. They can call me in Stark County if that's where they'd like to be, or any of the sites throughout the northern part of the state. And they could be involved. And there's many ways that they can be involved and be trained to become a presenter on this issue. And we have trainings quarterly.
Well, Sister Karen, we certainly appreciate your presence on our show today, and we wish you well in your work, and especially in your service and ministry toward those people who are in so much need in this whole issue of human trafficking. Thank you
very much.
Thank you for being with us for Church at Home. Have a nice day, and God be with you.
The Church at Home has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Korda.